Hey, everybody. All right. Thanks for joining us here on a Thursday night. This is the Carolina Multifamily Connection. We are now about 3 years strong with this group. Started it with the premise of connecting uh, New York, New Jersey-based investors with Carolina-based operators and investors. And it's been a great connection. I think half of our group that usually joins us will be from up north or down south in Carolina, and there are great connections being making done. Business, it's great to see. So I think today's topic is going to be very beneficial. This time of the year, April, usually everyone's dealing with taxes, sitting down, looking at their personal finances in one way or the other. I know for me, you know, probably should do it more than a year, but once a year I take a look, and kind of see where I am, what my goals are for the year, and where they were last year. And everyone that's in this business or investing, is usually very numbers oriented and driven, but you have many different places that you're looking at. So looking for a way to consolidate all your information and track and measure what you do is always something that's welcome. So I want to welcome today our guest, Rick Baldaramos. And Rick, why don't you give a little bit about yourself, and then you can take it over.
All right. I guess I started my career as a businessman at age 8. Had my second business at 12, my third by 15. Started playing blackjack, played blackjack for a living for 2 years, played poker for a living for 9 years, and kind of fell back into the business world when the Indian casinos in California let patrons bank the games. So I started banking blackjack games, which was very lucrative, and started playing around with businesses and stayed in business for most of my life. And when I wanted to exit business, it was okay, now what kind of investments do I want to make? Because I wanted to look at how I was going to create income without having to create it myself. So I got into real estate in 2010 and have been in it ever since. And now I invest in a variety of different things that just make sense. So I've spent the last decade or so learning about taxation, learning about passive income, and hopefully finding the right partners to invest with. So that's my story, and I have a personal approach where it's you run your personal life like a business, and it expedites getting to wherever you want to go quicker. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. And of course, we got the small group. So Mark, Greg, you guys jump in and ask questions as you feel free to do so.
So I have how do I share my screen?
Let me give you access.
Okay.
Uh, let's see. It's funny. It seems like it moved around here. Okay.
We'll get into it, but I think it's interesting how everybody kind of handles their finances, uniquely to themselves. And I think Rick, understanding that you look at it on a monthly basis, at least. I think Jerry was saying more of an annual basis, and I know I do it every 2 months basically. I'm kind of in there, kind of looking at everything. I forget where Mark is at with it, but um, in any event, I think it's important to look at, and I think I'm sure this will give us and whoever else watches this some good
But
ideas.
I think I'm interesting because I guess I probably do my holistic review once a year, but I'm looking at my bank accounts and everything like every single day, in and out. Like I'm bad,
Sure.
my wife will be like, no, no, I know what I was doing. It's funny.
Okay, so a lot of mine is I learned psychology from playing poker, and I learned math from playing blackjack. So this is a combination of both. And it's so much of this is preparing my brain for success, teaching my brain how to be successful, and understanding how my brain works. And I have my own theory on it. But I make this face. This face represents my the conscious part of our brain and my subconscious, where subconscious and unconscious are in the back, or at least that's what the experts tell us. So it's for me, since the experts can't agree on what's subconscious and what's unconscious, I call it my programmed brain. So it's my programmed brain, and I'll go along with the conscious brain in the front. So it's our programmed brain kind of runs the show. If you look at any animal outside of the human race, they are instinctual or programmed 99.9% of the time. And it's how often are we programmed? How often are we thinking about blinking our eyes, breathing, walking, driving, any of the things that started conscious and have become programmed? And the answer to me is 95% of the time we're still programmed, and less than 5% of the time is conscious. So I try to do as much as I can to take it out of that programming and into my conscious mind to ideally make myself smarter. So in this diagram, the two eyes, the primal and the genetic, are two components that happen to us before we're born. So this happens in the womb prior to our birth. And I might be more prone to heart disease. You might be more prone to cancer, just depending on what our genetic makeup is. Our primal makeup, as men, we want to be protectors, we want to be providers, we want some different things, where women are more nurturing, more family oriented, and want to just make their mate happy. The other three are how I see my programmed brain. And there's three major components that drive our lives. And it's pain, pleasure, and acceptance. Pain and pleasure come from Tony Robbins. I added acceptance because acceptance is such a huge component. And it's if we went to a party, let's say we're new in the neighborhood, one of the neighbors invites us over to a party, and we show up on Saturday night, and we get to the party, and we're dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, and everybody there is in a black tie and just completely decked out, evening gowns, and we would feel a little strange. And it's okay, we leave the party with our tail between the legs, and we see the neighbor a couple of days later, and they say, hey, we're having another party on Saturday night. Okay, we're coming, and we're prepared. We go out, we rent clothes, and we do everything, and we come to the party. And there's a rock band there, and everybody's in jeans and a t-shirt. And we would feel weird again. And we want to do what our tribe does. So so often we want to look successful. We want to wear the right clothes and drive the right cars and do the right things and say the right things, because that tribal component comes from, in America, 600 years ago, where the human being was meant to live in larger numbers than 2, 3, or 4 in a household. We lived in 40, 50, 60, 80, 500, 5,000 people in a tribe. And we still have that natural component to want acceptance from our tribe, because there would be nothing worse than living with 71 people and being caught doing something and be cast aside only to be sent out into the wild with no other human beings, just to live a life of solitude. So if we're not looking for acceptance, we avoid pain. And pain in today's world is a lot more perceived pain than actual pain. So our pain principle was to protect us from falling trees and rhinoceros or whatever potential danger was coming our way. If there was a bear coming at us, we'd find a way to try to avoid the bear. But in today's world, the pain principle is a lot more perceived pain than actual pain. So it's if I said, Greg, let's buy a rental property together, and you go, well, I've never bought a rental property together, and we buy it. And a year later, there's a drug dealer that's living in the house, and we're trying to get him out, and he pulls guns on us, and nothing's going right. And then we find out the police come to our house, and somebody died that he gave drugs to, and that family comes after and starts suing us, and they win, and they take everything from us. I'd be hard-pressed to get Greg to invest in a rental property anytime in the future, because that pain is so grand that he's probably going to go to his grave never being a landlord again. Because it's that perceived pain of what could potentially happen rules a lot of our lives. You know, if we're not seeking acceptance or pain, pleasure rules our lives. And if we look around in the world, it's alcohol, drugs, sugar, food, all of the things that present pleasure. And it's these three components morph our personalities into what gains us the acceptance necessary to feel like we're part of the tribe. So I do this because it gets into a mental component that I'll show you here in a second. But this little figure is at some point in our lives, or we are all one of these figures. Your net worth, you are a four-figure person, a five-figure person, six-figure, whatever you are where you are. So it's, if you're a six-figure person, becoming a seven-figure person is a really, really fun day. Becoming an eight-figure person is massively rewarding. But there's two different ways to look at this. One is net worth and one is deal size. So if you have a deal that says, okay, if I go out and make one figure, I'm happy, and there's an amount that makes you feel happy. And we all came into this world as one-figure people, because when we were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, we got a birthday card with $1 in it, $2 in it, $5 in it, and we thought that was all the money in the world. We were ecstatic, and we probably couldn't have been any happier. And then we became teenagers, and somebody goes, hey, I'll give you $5 to mow the lawn. And it's like, $5? I'm not mowing the lawn for $5. Okay, I'll give you 80. 80? That lawnmower was started inside a minute. We were out there buzzing around making $80, and we've now evolved into two-figure people. And we process through this to two-figure, three-figure, four-figure, five-figure, and then we stagnate at the one that seems like it makes the most amount of sense. So it's once we go out into the real world and get a job, and we're working at McDonald's, and we're getting our paychecks, and our paychecks are $250 a week, and well, now we've evolved into three-figure people. We may or may not want to mow the lawn for $80. And then as we go to college and come out and our paychecks are 3, 4, 5,000, now we become four-figure people. And four figures makes us happy. And then maybe we start flipping cars and we buy a car and sell it, make 3, 4, 5,000 bucks, and four figures makes us happy. And somebody shows us how to flip houses, and we flip houses. Now we're making $20, $30, $40,000, and now we're five-figure people, and we've evolved. And a lot of people get stuck on that five-figure number of flipping houses, and they do it their whole lives. But then there's folks that get into storage facilities, and they flip storage facilities, and they make six figures. And then there's folks that go, hey, I'm going to get into apartment complexes and start flipping apartment complexes, and they make seven figures. Then there's folks that go out and start buying businesses and improving businesses and flipping businesses, and they become eight-figure folks. And I'm part of a group called Financial Journey. And we had a guest earlier this month. He was 27 years old, and he'd already had 3 nine-figure exits. And it was, okay, so it was a minimum of $100 million, and he's done it 3 times so far. So his numbers are certainly well above my numbers. I am not a nine-figure person, and I can't fathom even ever seeing a check that large. So it's the reason I do that is because our brain, the part of our programmed brain, is there's 2 components to it. One, it wants to achieve whatever goal we set out for it. And the second is that it lives for the moment. It lives for today. So if you go out and you sell a house and you were supposed to make $30,000 on the house, but there was a bidding war, and now you made $85,000. Now there's $85,000 in your banking account. The first thing that your programmed brain does is okay, how can I have fun with this, right? It's okay, let me go buy a car, let me go buy a boat, let's take honey on a vacation. Something new will show up because there's $85,000 in your account. And my theory is that we have, is there a question? Oh, we have a number that makes us feel broke, and we have a number that makes us feel rich. This is our pain number. This is our pleasure number. And for most of us, we spend our entire life in between these 2 numbers. And when you look at it for somebody else and they get up past their comfort zone and they have more money than their subconscious believes that they're worth, there's things that happen. You see this in the NBA or football. I mean, it's as soon as they sign the contract, the ink isn't even dry, and mama has a new house, they have a new Mercedes and a new set of earrings. And they're just slightly bigger than the last guy that bought a set of earrings because they're in that pleasure principle and they want to go out and do it. But from our standpoint, watching it looks like a financial sabotage. Well, if they only put that in the S&P, they'd earn 8.8% and never have to work again. But that's not how our brain works. And my theory is that most of America's broke number is a 2-figure number. It's somewhere between $10 and $99. And they don't feel broke until it gets down into that range. They don't feel broke until they look in the account and they go, "Oh my God, there's $19 in the account, honey. Don't put gas in the car. Wait till the paycheck comes." And it's interesting. And their rich number is a three-figure number. So it's if they're a plumber or something and they get their paycheck and there's $2,200 coming in, oh boy, right on, we're up here. We pay the rent, we pay all the late fees, pay everything off, and there's still $1,200 in there. It's time to take honey to a nice steak dinner, because why? We're out of our comfort zone. So it's my remedy for this is to create two bank accounts. The upper account, the main account, is where all of my money goes into. So if I have a job, if I have a rental property, if I have whatever income stream, if I'm on Social Security, whatever I'm on, all of this money, let's say I'm still mowing lawns for $80, all of this money goes into the main account. And then on the first of the month, I transfer the amount that I want to live on, and that goes into my budget account. So it's, if you have one bank account now, you have one of these two accounts already. You only need to open one more. So it's, if you have the account that there's a lot more ins than there is outs, you have the main account. If there's a lot more bill pays and automatic payments going out, then you already have the budget account. You need to add one more account to set this system up. And the main account can be a savings account, since you never really pay anything from it. It's only there to catch everything, because what we're doing is we're programming our brain to only see the amount that's in the budget account. So it's when we only see this amount, our brain will never feel rich, because there'll never be more than whatever you pick as your budget amount. If it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, $10,000. What I do is let's say that I already have my main account. I go open a budget account. I put a seed amount in there, maybe $2,000, and then I'll transfer the $6,000 that I want as my budget amount in there. And on May 1st, there will be specifically $8,000 to start that account. Then what I do is I change all of my credit card statements, change all of my insurance payments, change everything so that I can pay in the first 5 days of the month. So a lot of times they have you change your statement dates or your pay dates. I change them to the end of the month so that I can pay them somewhere around the 5th of the month, so that if I have $6,000, I pay my mortgage, I pay my insurance, I pay the utilities, I pay whatever I can pay. And now when I get it down to $1,800 and I have $1,800 to live on the last 25 days of the month, I have now created a brain that's in pain. I've gone into conservator mode, and I need to get through this month on a limited amount of money. So now my main account, if I were better at a computer, this would look like a toilet bowl. It would look like a toilet bowl tank, and it would have the double flusher on the toilet bowl tank. It'll have the mini flush for number 1, and it'll have the maxi flush for number 2. So it's the mini flush is on the 1st of every month, I transfer the money from my main account down into my budget account. And it's, I live on that budget. The main account, we are going to set a broke number, and we're going to set a rich number. And you can start at lower, and then move it up, but my numbers are 6x and 10x. So my broke number is 6x. So if my budget amount is $6,000, my broke number is $36,000. And then I'll set it up where I have my $36,000 in my main account. I'll have $6,000 go into my budget account. I'll have all my income go into my main account. And then as time goes by, let's say I'm making $8,000 a month, it's going to take some time for that to grow. Once it gets to the 10x or the $60,000, we get to push the maxi flush. And the maxi flush shuffles everything above the 6x or $36,000 over into our investment account. And once in our investment account, there's 2 things that I recommend. Mine's at Schwab, so I either buy the S&P if I'm not over my goal, and I buy SWXX, which is a money market earning 5% if I'm above my goal. And we'll get into the goals likely next. So it's, this whole system is to encourage people to run their financial wealth business as the #1 most important business of their lives. It's not your real estate business. It's not your law firm. It's not your anything else. It is you. It is define what it is you're trying to achieve, figure out what it's going to take to try to get there, and run your business like a business, run your personal wealth like a business. And what do businesses do? Well, they have financials. They have a cash flow statement. They have a balance sheet. And businesses have P&Ls, but we don't need a P&L. That's more for taxes than anything else. So this is a balance sheet. This is the simplest form of a balance sheet, where it's like, okay, what are my assets or liabilities or income? This is a one-page balance sheet where it shows the value of the asset, it shows the debt of the asset. If I were going to sell it, how much would it sell? What would I net out after sell? So it's, what is the income from this? What is the expense from this? And what is my net income from this? So it's, my year is somewhat planned out, where it's in February 1st, I start collecting all my tax documents. I do this for 2 months. I try to get everything that I possibly can to my tax person on April 1st. And then on April 1st, I shift gears and I go in to check on my wealth business, because there's something called cash on cash return for real estate. And then there's something called cash on equity return on real estate. So it's, I go into each one of my investments to see if it's meeting my 8% threshold. And if it's not, looking at, okay, how can I either make this property cash flow at 8%, or do I have to get rid of it? So it's, sometimes things change and it just doesn't make sense holding on to them. So this is a balance sheet. This is actually the system that I share. I teach this class twice a year to what I call millionaires and multimillionaires. And this is running your business, running your wealth business like a business. And on my balance sheet, there's 3 components. There's personal assets, there's investable assets, and there's retirement assets. And if you're not 59 and a half, your retirement assets don't count. So it's, how much do I have in investable assets? Because it's, I could have a $10 million net worth, but I might have a $9 million car collection and $1 million in my retirement account. So I basically have nothing to play with to try to create income now. So it's depending on when you expect to be what we call work optional, depends on how many chips you have to play with, right? It's the investable assets are the only thing that are a factor. So this will separate all of your investable assets to everything else. So, and then at the bottom, it'll total how much I have in personal assets, how much I have in liquid assets, how much investable liquid, investable long-term, and then retirement accounts. So this is telling me, okay, I have a total of like 8.8 million in investable assets. So this is obviously a more complex, I use this as an example, but this is a more complex, hold on, I need a cord. Balance sheet for the more serious folks. This is a balance sheet for simple people, where it's, I have a home, I have a car, I have a bank account, I have a mortgage, and I might have a student loan. But it's, as we follow the balance sheet routine and as we make our entries on a monthly basis, we hit our pleasure principle when this goes from 59,000 net worth to 61,000 net worth, and we stay the course, and it makes us want to succeed. And watching our net worth grow is a fun thing to do. For me, I've had a lot of real estate in my life. I only change the value of the real estate at the end of the year. So on December's entries, I make my balance sheet entries. I don't change them every year, because I've had over 200 properties at one point in time, and I wasn't going to go through 200 properties every month and change the values of them. So it's, for me, I make a rule that I don't want to spend more than about 30 minutes a month on my financials. So depending on which one you choose, you can choose the simple balance sheet, you can choose the system that I showed you before, and it does a lot for you. So now, thinking about retirement, people always say, I want 100 doors, I want $1 million, I want $5 million, I want all of these things. And it's like, why? Well, what is your reasoning for getting to where you want to go? I always encourage people to pick a monthly income number. So that's just much easier. You can go back on your bank statement and say, well, geez, I spent 4,600 last month, or I spent 8,200, and say, okay, well, if you go back over the course of the last year, you can tally up about how much you spent every month. And say, okay, well, geez, we spent $9,400 a month, but I think we can live on 8,000. Okay, great. Set up your banking system, set up a main account, set up a budget account, and transfer that money into the budget account on the first of every month. Transfer 8,000. And guess what? If you don't change your spending habits, you're going to have to go back up to the kitty and get more money and suck it back down into that budget account. And ideally, you cause yourself a massive amount of pain because you failed and you want to feel the pain. You want to use it as a motivator to be better next month. So I try to stay on a budget on an annual basis, not a monthly basis. So there might be a little more or a little less in my budget account than is necessary, but I know if my number goes negative, that it's time for me to think a little bit harder, figure out what I need to do, maybe cut out a Netflix account or whatever I need to do to get back into budget. So it's when we think about our monthly desired income, let's go in here and type in $6,000 a month. So at $6,000 a month, I know based on my simple math, it's 150x. 150x times $6,000 a month means I need $900,000 in not counting tax income to create $6,000 a month of income, assuming an 8% return. And people always ask me how I did that. I've never had this. I actually made this today, but with $6,000, there's 12 months in a year, so that gets us to $72,000. If I divide 72,000 by 8%, I get $900,000. I can do the math differently by dividing 8% into 100%, which is 12 and a half times. So by multiplying 12 times 12 and a half, I get 150, and all I have to do is multiply 150 times $6,000 to get my $900,000 goal. So if I want $6,000 a month, and I know I can invest with Mark, and he has an 8% preferred return, and I can create that $6,000 a month by investing with him, then all I have to do is get $900,000 to start. And only the blue numbers are inputtable, everything else is programmed, so you can input the three numbers. If I know I can get 10% interest, well then it's 12 times 10, and I only need 120 times my monthly number to get to my goal. So this is a very simple snapshot of what am I trying to achieve, what do I need to achieve it, and if you want to add the tax factor into it, the effective tax is total income divided by total tax is your effective tax. Right? There's tax brackets. Our tax brackets are 10, 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, and 37, plus your state. But it's if you make $1 million and pay $170,000 in tax, your effective tax is 17%. Your tax bracket is 37, but your effective tax is 17%. So know your effective tax bracket, because that's going to play into what your pre-tax amount is that is necessary to achieve your goal. It's usually typed on the first page of your tax return, one of the first 3 pages of your tax return. There's something that says effective tax rate. But it's interesting that the millionaires and multimillionaires that I teach don't know this. And I want to digress for a second, because to me, a millionaire is somebody with a 7-figure net worth. A multimillionaire is somebody with an 8-figure net worth. So to me, a multimillionaire is somebody that has $10 million or more. And if you have 9 figures, you're rich. And then it goes to billionaire, and then we do the same thing with multi-billionaire. You actually have to have $10 billion to be a multi-billionaire, because it never made sense to me that a millionaire has 1 million, a multi-millionaire has 2 million, and a billionaire has 1,000 million. That just never made sense to me. So for me, I've kind of changed the lingo to play along. But this is a handy little tool where if you just 150x it gives you your goal. So in my mind, there's 3 types of investors. There's a cash flow investor, there's an equity investor, and there's a tax strategy investor. So if your goal is $6,000 and you have $867,000 of investable assets, you are a cash flow investor. If your goal is $6,000 and you have $500,000 of equity or of investable assets, you are an equity investor. You need to get into the deals that are going to be 2x, 3x, 5x. You need to get into the deals that are going to multiply your capital. If you are in a tax bracket higher than 24%, you are a tax advantage investor. There's investments that create 100% depreciation where you can, instead of paying the 25% depreciation recapture and the capital gains on stuff, you can go make an investment into something, offset your depreciation and your capital gains on something by simply investing an amount into something that gives you 100% depreciation to offset those gains. Oil and gas is a good one. The ATM fund by McKenna is a good one. There's several that are good ones that offset your gains where you don't have to pay them. So it's understanding the tax is a key component to figuring out what it is you're trying to do. This is one that lets you compare, that says, okay, you know what, we've been spending $9,400, let's keep spending $9,400. And we go, okay, if we spend $9,400 and we make $10,000, when do we get to be done? What if we live on $8,000? When do we get to be done? What if we live on $7,000? When do we get to be done? What if we change our income to $12,000 a month? When do we get to be done? And this lets you play with it where I don't know what the inputs here are, but basically if I do the first input, I retire at 100. If I do the second input, I retire at 53. If I do the third input, I retire at 42. So it allows you to pick when you're going to be done. It allows you to pick how much monthly income you're going to be done, and it factors in the taxes and everything necessary to calculate exactly what it is that you need to do to achieve it. Because the wealth is three simple things: make more, spend less, and invest the rest. So the last one is our tax brackets. Why do I say stay in the 12 or the 24% tax bracket? Because you can't live in the 0% tax bracket. You'll have no money and it'll be hard to eat. So it's the 12% tax bracket as a married person is $117,000. As a single person, I don't think these are right anymore, but you can always look up the tax brackets online. But the 12% tax bracket, the reason it's 12% is it goes from 12 to 22. It nearly doubles. We don't want to do anything that goes from 12 to 22. So it goes from 22 to 24, which is okay, and then it goes from 24 to 32. It goes up by 33%. So we want to live in one of these two tax brackets. So it's how do I stay in these two tax brackets? I make investments into things that give me depreciation in the year that I make them to get me down into the area that I want to be. So it's how do I stay in this bracket? I live in the 12% bracket. My income's been over $1 million a year for many years. I live in the 12% bracket. Why? I have a lot of depreciation. I have things that I invest in that have depreciation. I make donations to charitable remainder trusts that give me good tax benefits. But I understand taxation well, and I know what my tax bracket's going to be before I get to the end of the year. December 26th to December 31st, to me, are not the holidays. They are tax planning time. I better export my cash flow statement, add in all of my tax benefits, and figure out exactly what my taxable income is by Christmas so that I can manipulate my tax bill into the bracket that I want to be in during the end of the time. One of the strategies for those folks that have retirement accounts, if you have an IRA or 401k or any of these types of accounts, you always want to Roth them. Because Roth is they grow all the way through, and then they become tax-free in retirement. So let's say that you're married and you're making $90,000 a year. Well, guess what? You have $27,150 of free space in the 12% bracket to roll from your IRA to a Roth IRA. So it's pay attention to this, because as I look through my calendar, February 1st to April 1st is tax planning season. April 1st is asset evaluation time, and what you people used to call the holidays is now a tax planning strategy where it's look to see what your taxable income is. If you can take a chunk of your IRA or your 401k and roll it into a Roth at a discounted rate, do it. If you are already in the 24% tax bracket, we can assume that you're going to be in the 24% tax bracket retirement. So if it costs you 24% now, it's a good deal for all of the growth that grows over time in this bracket. So it's the reason I say this is this is a depiction of a Roth account. So let's assume that you were an astute investor and started investing the maximum amount from age 18 all the way to age 65. So if you put in your 6,000 at 50, it actually goes up to 7,000. And I think they changed it this year. I think it's 6,500 and 7,500. But just for this example, if you invested $6,000, maxed it out every year from 18 to 65, 48 years, the S&P has historically returned 8.8%. So in this example, we're just going to assume that it was specifically 8.8% every year all the way through. You would have invested a total of $303,000 in your IRA or your 401k, only to get to 65 years old with $3.9 million in one of those accounts. So now as you take it out, and let's assume that you just take the interest out, the interest is $314,000 a year. You're going to be taxed at 24%. You're going to be paying $78,500 in taxes a year. So does it make sense to get the tax benefit from the $7,000 that's tax deductible each year? Or does it make a lot more sense to get $3.5 million of tax-free equity in retirement when you really need to save your pennies? So that's where let's pay attention to our taxable income in December. Let's try to get all of our 401k money, our IRA money rolled over into Roths, because it's going to be pertinent at age 65 when it's, okay, how do we do this right?
So, Rick, I have a quick question for you, because I know with Roth, there are income restrictions for contributions, but is that not the case for rollovers?
Rollovers are unlimited. You can put $1 billion and roll it over and just pay the tax. All they care about is you pay the tax. You can only put, I think it's 7,500 this year. You can only put 7,500 in a Roth, and you have to have earned income to do it.
How about this, Rick? I don't know if you would know the answer, but I mean, I have at my current job, I have a Roth bucket and a traditional bucket. Would I be able to, you think, change that, roll that over from during the year and just pay the tax as you say?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Even with the current.
You can have 87 Roth accounts. You can have 87 Roth accounts and 22 non-Roths. You can have unlimited retirement accounts wherever you want them to be. And you can have a self-directed, checkbook IRAs, checkbook Roths, whatever you want to have. But this is just a way to think about planning, because I don't believe that the human being thinks about tomorrow. And if you think about, going back to the very first slide, if you think about this one, this is what runs our life, right? We have money, we want that pleasure, we want to get out. What does money do? Money gets you acceptance. Money gets you out of pain, because you can hire lawyers to not go to prison for murdering your ex-wife. And it gives you a massive amount of pleasure, right? I mean, I had somebody just say, hey, want to come to Puerto Rico? All right. So, and I can, because I look in the account and there's still enough money in my budget account for me to go, so I get to go. So it's, oh, okay. But if you look at TV commercials, I challenge anybody to show me a TV commercial that doesn't either give you acceptance, get you out of pain, or provide you pleasure. I don't think I've ever seen such a commercial. So they hit on these three principles of our subconscious to try to get their product or service sold, and it plays on us. So that's where it's understand your tax brackets. Make this a point. Put this in a calendar. Visit them. They come out every January. know what they are, know what game you're playing in, and create a system. Successful businesses have business plans. And there's a saying, those who know what they want get what they want. Those who don't get what they get. So it's, how can you be one of those folks that knows what you want? And what is it going to take for you to get what you want to get? And it's our program brain. All I'm doing is training my brain. This is my coach. This is my program brain. I'm trying to get this, to teach this, to do the things that I want it to do so that I can succeed at the level that I want to succeed. So it's, if you have high aspirations and say, I want $100,000 a month, great. And what do? I flip houses for a living. Okay, how many are you flipping? I'm flipping 2 a month. Okay, great, that's $100,000 a month. You need $15 million. It could take you longer than your entire life to succeed. So it's, that's working, what is it? Working in the business, not working on the business. We need to digress, go back, figure out what it is that's going to create success for our personal wealth business, and then define our life around it. So it's, how can I define the business so that if I need $15 million, I can grow the business to a point where I can sell it for $15 million, take that $15 million out, create that $100,000 a month of income, and succeed at the level that I want to succeed at. The folks I like helping are the ones that have high aspirations, the ones that want $250,000 a month. And it's, okay, great, okay, doing what you're doing, when will you succeed? And we have one right here that just says, okay, plug in the numbers. And it's funny because these are the two different components on how I see what people do. This one is this is what most humans do. They work 4.5 decades. They get to 65 years old and go, okay, how much money do I get? $1,900 a month. Oh, I'm going to have to keep working. I'm going to have to be a Walmart greeter. I'm going to have to move in with my kids. The other one is all of your income goes into your main account. Your main account goes into your budget account. And when the toilet bowl tank gets full, you flush it over into your investment account. And it's, if you automate your finances, it prevents the ridiculous spending that happens to people when there's more money in it than your subconscious thinks there should be. So there's a sabotage thing that happens. It happens to every NBA player, not every, but the majority of NBA players, the majority of baseball players, the majority of football players, when they sign those big fat contracts, it's interesting seeing their houses because they're married with 2 or 3 kids, and it's 50,000 square foot house. You have an Uber driver to get you to your family, and it's, when you make these obscene amounts of money, now you're spending your time trying to figure out how to spend it. And that's your new life, because it's more is not better. There is a number that makes you have your perfect life, and there's no reason to overachieve the goal. So this is work optional. This is just phase 1, right? You get to work optional. You pick your number. We're teaching your brain how to succeed. So it's, if you say, I want $6,000 of passive income coming in a month, great. We follow the process. You do your financials on a monthly basis. You see, you track it. You get to your 150x number of whatever that monthly number is. You get to where you want to be, and you invest it into passive income, create the income stream, and you can continue working or not. Once you've done that, you are well acclimated to a cash flow statement. You're well acclimated to a balance sheet. Now, the next phase 2 is define your life. And you get to define your life, and you say, okay, you know what? I want to live in cook. I want to live in massage therapist. I want to live in maid. I want a second home. I want. Every time you put an I want down there, you better go over there and say, okay, well, how much is a maid? Well, how much is a cook? How much are these people? And then now we tally it up and say, geez, that's going to be $94,000 a month. All right, let's multiply that times 150 and get back to work. And you can have the life you want if you can train your brain to get there. But I mean, this is normal, right? It's worked 4.5 decades. Figure out how much you're going to have and adjust your life. My program's the exact opposite. Pick the amount that you want to live on and go find a way to get it. So I did something weird. I actually bought houses in Vallejo, Solano County, which is about 15 miles from San Francisco, in 2010. I saw an opportunity, and I'd read Warren Buffett's books. You know, you want to buy when there's blood in the streets. And I had a friend of mine who tried to get me into real estate the whole time, and I should have never been a real estate investor. The first house that I had in 1989 in Las Vegas, I gave to my realtor just so I could stop making the payments. And the second house I lost in a foreclosure. So I walked away with zero from two houses. I should have never been in a house. If my pain principle was a little more strong, I would have never bought houses. But he invited me out to Vallejo for something, and I'd already heard his whole spiel, and I wasn't much interested. But I liked the guy, and I went out there. And there was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house on a quarter-acre lot 15 miles from San Francisco. And he says, Rick, he said, he was a general contractor. He goes, it's going to cost about $20,000 to put granite countertops in the kitchens. I tile the floors, and they'll be ready to rent. And the front house rents for $1,200. The back house rents for $1,000. And I said, okay, you know. And he says the list price on this house is $58,000. $58,000. Well, I had $58,000, but I had no credit because I just filed for foreclosure on my house, so I couldn't get a loan. And it's, well, how do I skin this cat? So I made an offer on the house and didn't get it. But then I spent the next 2 years making 3,000 offers on houses in Solano County and got quite a few of them. And so I bought this house for $58,000. I put the $22,000 into it, and I was all in for 80 grand. And then I turned around and sold it to my best friend for $130,000. And my best friend bought this house for $130,000. And I now had my $80,000 back, and I had $50,000 of profit. So my friend had to put $26,000 down because he had to put 20% down. So I turned around and I wrote my friend a check for $26,000 and gave him all of his money back and bought half the house. So now he had half a house for zero, and I had half a house for $24,000 in the bank. How many houses did I want to buy? All of them. I wanted to buy them all. But I only had so much cash. I'd buy a house, I'd turn it over to him, I'd get the cash, I'd buy another house, and unfortunately I had a bunch of cash at the time, so I ended up buying quite a few of them. And I turned my best friend into a millionaire because we just sold the last house last December. But if you want to grow equity, this isn't a bad way to do it, where you can go buy a house, have zero invested in it. It'll cash flow at $50 or $100 as long as you follow the 1% rule. It'll break even or whatever, but the houses appreciate at 6.5% a year. So if I have a $100,000 house, I'm going to make $6,500 on a zero investment. It's okay. Well, how long will it take to will it take to double?
I gotta drop off. I didn't interrupt you, but Rick, I appreciate it, and
okay, cool.
Thank you guys. All right, take care.
All right.
Bye.
So, thanks for coming in. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, this went longer than I expected, huh? Sorry about that. I didn't have the clock up. So, but that's it's just a different mindset, right? It's my wealth is my business. It's my most important business.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
yeah,
I think what's great here is that obviously there's a lot of technical, analysis that goes behind, like, we're looking at this particular spreadsheet here, but it's mindset, right? When you go back to the very first slide where you're talking about, really, it's almost like, think, what's that book, the Richest Man in Babylon, or like, pay yourself first and make sure that you are, you're taking care of what you do. I think it's a mindset part that everyone has to really get around wrapping themselves around, and that's what I think you're touching before you get into the numbers and digging into the tax strategies, right?
absolutely, right. If I'm still mowing lawns for $80 a time, and I have 3 or 4 lawns that I'm mowing, but I want $25,000 a month coming in, something has to give. Either I'm going to have to mow lawns 87 hours a day, or I'm going to have to change my brain, because my brain is not programmed to succeed at that level. So there's a lot of folks that flip storage units, right? And they can flip 1 or 2 storage units a year, and they're going to make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 as a GP, and they want $250,000 a month. Well, what has to give? You have to change your brain. This is not the path to success, right? It's path to a comfortable life, but it's not the path to your goal. Your goal. You have to identify your goal first, and then figure out the path on how you're going to get there. Second, and our brain is very much like a left turn lane, right? We sit in the left turn lane, and it's in the old days we used to have to roll the window down, but it's when the light turns green and you have that cement barrier over there, do you stick your head out the window and watch the left tire and then turn the wheel to see if the left tire is going to get around the cement barrier? Do you watch your hands and turn your hands and get everything around to see if your hands are appropriate? Or do you just see where you want to go and your brain takes you there? It's the same thing, right? I want to be a millionaire. Okay, great. How am I going to get there? What is it? I'm going to mow lawns. Okay, I got $80 a lawn. Okay, how many lawns? Well, 1,000 lawns is $80,000. 10,000 lawns is 800,000. So I'm going to need 12,500 lawns to make $1 million. All right, how many can I do in a day? And do the math. Everything we do the math first. Don't just jump in. Jumping in is what everybody does. Everybody just jumps in and goes, okay, I'm a real estate investor. I'm going to buy a rental and rent it out, and yay. And we have no idea what's going to happen with that. But it's, what if we did? What if we did have an idea of, okay, great. I know for me, I'm a cash flow investor because my cash flow is low this year. In my IRA, I'm an equity investor. And because I sold the property and I'm in opportunity zones, I have the depreciation coming due in either 2027 or 2029, depending on whether Congress passes a bill or not. Well, in 2027, I am a tax strategy investor because I'm going to have enough money in my investment account to make sure that I can make the appropriate investment, get enough depreciation to offset that amount so that I don't have to pay the taxes. But I know that because I have something else called the crystal ball that tells me exactly what my income is going to be for the rest of my life, including depreciation recapture, including capital gains, including federal taxes, including state taxes. It shows me what my cash flows, it predicts what my cash flow is going to be annually forever. And that's handy. So it's a different mindset. I had to learn this mindset. I created this strategy because it seems like if you can make you the most important business, everything else is just a finger. It's just one of the fingers that creates income on you trying to achieve the goal that you want to set for your wealth business. So it's just a different philosophy.
I wanted to check before. Thanks, but this was great. Mark, Angel, if you guys had any questions, feel free to jump in.
I'm curious. I'm a single guy, so I very much take this stuff seriously myself. But for folks with significant others, and particularly significant others who may have different financial education than themselves. Again, not asking for myself, more so just others who could benefit from this. But how would you go about approaching that? Have you worked with clients whose maybe goals or approach to managing their own wealth is very different than that of their spouse, and how did you kind of overcome that?
I'm coaching a 14-year-old and 18-year-old, and it's get 2 bank accounts. Pick the amount that you want to live on and create financials. Start your wealth business now, right? I have one that's 18 years old. His 2 assets are his $700 car and his knife collection. And we get on the phone every month, and we revalue those knives. We revalue that plus whatever's in his bank account. And he transfers the amount that he's going to live on that month. And it's get the financial concepts laid first and protect yourself from you because you're your worst enemy. And once you understand the foundation of this, it runs itself, right? It's okay, if my income's $300 a month, okay, great. I have to have $3,000 to reach my broke number in my main account. I have to have $1,800 in my broke number and $3,000 is my rich number. And then it's okay, now I get to move it over into my investment account. And then for these folks, I tell them just buy the S&P. Just buy the S&P until you can afford to buy a rental. But it's once you have money in the investment account, now the brain switches, and now it's like, okay, what can I do? Maybe I can go buy 5% of a rental with these guys, and you empty your account and you go buy 5%, and then you continue the program, and maybe the rental actually pays you something, and your main account goes up a little bit faster. And then it's okay, well, now I have some more money. Now maybe I'm going to buy 10% of the next deal until you become something, and it's understand what it is you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
Awesome. Hi, Angel, by the way. I wanted to say hi. Thanks for coming on.
Angel, were you here for the whole show?
No, but I got here, I don't know, probably 20 minutes ago, maybe?
Okay.
Wow.
I'm wrong. I'm in Central.
Okay. So yeah, that's where it's. I mean, I've touched on this with both of you, but haven't really walked through the whole process. And this is a 5-week class and that I do twice a year, and it's okay. How am I going to shove all of this into an hour? And I missed because we went to 90 minutes, but it was hopefully helpful.
No, it's awesome. And I have the recording, so I'll definitely get it out. I think also, Mark dropped in the chat earlier, what gets measured gets improved. And that's another important thing about having a discipline to do this. Like, I think when I see a lot of this, I do it without even thinking. It's kind of not like a formal process. And I want to start to formalize that. But like, I do like kind of, monthly income statements on my own, kind of like watching what goes in and what goes out. So it makes a lot of sense to do this and to have more of a structured process around it for sure.
And one thing to note is let's say that these are LLCs with multiple units. This is a business, and this has its own parameters, and it has its own bank accounts. And my general rule of thumb is I keep the minimum amount in my LLCs, and I draw everything above the minimum amount. So if I'm a single member LLC, and I might keep five or 15,000 in to prevent fees, and then sweep everything over into my main account. The only thing that hits my cash flow statement is the amount that I swept. So if I swept an amount from that LLC to my personal cash flow statement, I get a number. If nothing came that month, I get a 0. And in my cash flow statement, I always put 0 so that I know that my eyes hit that box rather than just leave it blank. But if you're going to have books for each of your businesses, so you don't need to make your personal cash flow statement or your personal balance sheet that daunting. If let's say I have 12 properties in this LLC, I'm going to value those 12 properties, and then once a year, I'm going to put them into my balance sheet, and they all go, they will be the same all the way through until you see that I leave December open, because at the end of December, I'm going to change that, and I'm going to go into 123 Main Street and figure out what it's worth and type the real number in there. So it's when you do real estate deals and the bank goes, here, can you fill out our form with your financial statement on it? Oh my God, I hated that. They take this. You just sign the little thing on the bottom. I swear under the penalty of perjury, this is true and correct. Sign it, date it, and once you PDF this, you're done. You just PDF it look like this, right? Kill these two. This is your PDF that shows what your assets are. Send it to the bank. You're good for a loan.
Yeah.
So I like simple. I like the stupid simple. I like to make everything as easy as possible because I budget my time, not my money. My time is far more important. I have a new friend that recently invited me to Puerto Rico and said, all right, I'll be home on June 1st. I've been home 12 days since December 19th. So it's all right. Yeah, Puerto Rico sounds interesting. Let's go. So, yeah, that's where it's my life. My life revolves around my life. It doesn't revolve around my money. So I created enough money to have the life I wanted. That's the goal. So I 150x'd my target goal income. And once I did, it's okay, now what life do I want? I don't spend much time with money. I spend my time on figuring out where it is I want to go. I'm spending
I'm
this winter
curious.
in South America.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there, Rick.
What was that?
I didn't mean to interrupt there. I just had a question for you.
Okay.
From the folks that you consult with, because I almost view this building wealth as kind of a two-step process. In my mind, it starts with, ensuring that your expenses are lower than your income and hopefully growing that spread over time. And that's
Yeah.
one kind of problem to be optimized. And then the other one for me, this is just the way I interpret it, is taking that savings and then putting that into some kind of a hopefully cash flowing or wealth building asset. And all the tax analysis behind that, optimization behind taxes as well. But I'm just curious if you were to view it as those two kind of steps, the folks that come to you, is it more often that they struggle with the first one or the second one, or is it kind of everything?
You have to. The week one is you export your bank account to Excel and figure out how much you spent a month. And there's two ways to do it. You either just put the number, and then over the next 4 months, you figure out the number that you can get by on, or you export your bank statements for 6 or 12 months, figure out what your average amount spent is, and call that your budget amount. But yes, you have to have more income than your budget amount, and the bigger the spread, the faster the time you get done. Because if you're making 10,000 and your budget's 9,800, you're not getting there. So you have to find a way to create more income. But that's the motivator of the main account is because if I'm at 6,000 a month in a budget, and I know I need to get to 60,000 before I can move it over into my investment account, before I'm allowed to make an investment, I'm motivated to go find more money. I'm motivated to spend less money because now I want to get to my rich number. And then as soon as I get to my rich number, I break myself and go back to the broke number. And then that money comes over here because this is my money. This is my insurance policy in case something goes wrong. I have 6 to 10 months of income. And this is my future self's money. So these aren't mine, right? The only one that's mine is this stuff. And it's an anemic number, right? It's often a 4-digit number, or maybe a 5-digit number, and rarely a 6-digit number, depending on where you are in life. But yeah, we're trying to train the brain to make more, want to make more, want to celebrate those successes, because once we've had a success and we move it over to the investment account, part of the training is to go enjoy it, go celebrate like there's no tomorrow. Treat yourself like you hit the lottery. Right? Because we want to program that brain to enjoy the success when we have it. And we want the brain to be hungry to go create more success.
Yeah, it's human nature kicking in there for many, for sure.
Right. We do so much for others. We don't do a whole lot for ourselves, but we can. This is my coach. My conscious mind is my coach. If I see something in my programming I don't like, I got to work with it. So it's how do I work with it? How do I become better? It's constant, never-ending improvement. So I'm always trying to coach myself to be better.
Awesome. Well, Rick, I want to thank you because we're about an hour 15 in. I appreciate you coming on, and this was great.